He had told me that the Suryavanshis represent the masculine life force and the Chandravanshis represent the feminine. What does this mean? Because I don't think it has anything to do with men and women.
You can't get more obvious than that, my friend. You're right. It has nothing to do with men and women. It has to do with the way of life of the Suryavanshis and Chandravanshis.
Way of life?
You know what makes humans special when compared to animals?
Asked the Pandit. What? Asked Shiva.
The fact that we work together. We collaborate to achieve combined goals. We pass on knowledge to each other. So every generation begins its journey from the shoulders of the previous generation and not from scratch.
I agree. But we are not the only ones who work in a pack. Other animals, like the elephants or lions, do it as well. But nobody does it on the scale that we do.
Yes, that's true. But it's not always about collaboration. It is sometimes about competition as well. It's not always about peace. Many times, it's also about war.
Shiva smiled and nodded.
So the key point is that we humans are nothing individually,
said the Pandit.
Our powers flow from all of us, from the way all of us live together.
Yes, agreed Shiva.
And if we have to live together, we must have a way of life, right?
Yes, some method for all of us to collaborate or compete with each other.
Most people believe there are many hundred ways of life in the world,
said the Pandit.
Every civilization thinks that it is unique in some way.
Shiva nodded in agreement.
But if you actually distill the way people live, there are only two ways, the masculine and the feminine.
And what do these ways of life mean?
The masculine way of life is life by laws. Laws that could be made by a great leader, perhaps a Vishnu, like Lord Ram, or laws that come down from a religious tradition, or collective laws decreed by the people themselves. But the masculine way is very clear. Laws are unchangeable and they must be followed rigidly. There is no room for ambiguity. Life is predictable because the populace will always do what has been ordained. Meluha is a perfect example of such a way of life. It is obvious, therefore, why the people of this way of life live by the code of truth, duty, and honor, since that's what they need to be successful in the system.
And the feminine?
The feminine way of life is life by probabilities. There are no absolutes, no black or white. People don't act as per some preordained law, but based on probabilities of different outcomes perceived at that point of time. For example, they will follow a king who they think has a higher probability of remaining in power. The moment the probabilities change, their loyalties do as well. If there are laws in such a society, they are malleable. The same laws can be interpreted differently at different points of time. Change is the only constant. Feminine civilizations like Swadweep are comfortable with contradictions, and the code for success in such a system? Unmistakably, passion, beauty, and freedom.
And no one way of life is better.
Obviously, both types of civilizations must exist, because they balance each other.
How?
You see, a masculine civilization at its peak is honorable, consistent, reliable, and spectacularly successful in an age suitable for its particular set of laws. There is order, and society moves coherently in a preordained direction. Look at the Suryavanshis today. But when masculine civilizations decline, they cause horrible turmoil, becoming fanatical and rigid. They will attack those that are different, try to convert them to their truth, which will lead to violence and chaos. This especially happens when an age changes. Change is difficult for the masculine. They will cling even more rigidly to their laws, even though those laws may be unsuitable for the new age. Masculine civilizations enforce order, which is welcome when they are strong, but is suffocating when they decline. The Asuras, who were followers of the masculine way had faced similar problems when their power started waning.
So when fanaticism causes rebellions born of frustration, the openness of the feminine brings a breath of fresh air.
Exactly. The feminine way incorporates all differences. People of varying faiths and belief can coexist in peace. Nobody tries to enforce their own version of the truth. There is a celebration of diversity and freedom, which brings forth renewed creativity and vigor, causing tremendous benefits to society. The Devs, who were followers of the feminine way, brought in all this when they defeated the Asuras. But as it happens, with too much freedom, the feminine civilizations overreach into decadence, corruption, and debauchery.
Then the people once again welcome the order of the masculine.
Yes. The feminine Deva way was in decline during Lord Ram's times. The country was corrupt, immoral, and depraved. People clamored for order and civility. Lord Ram ushered that in as he created a new masculine way of life. Very intelligently, to prevent unnecessary rebellions, he never decried the Deva way. He just called his rule a new way of life, the Suryavanshi path.
But can you really say the masculine and the feminine only exist at the level of civilizations? Asked Shiva. Doesn't it really exist within every man and woman? Doesn't everyone have a little bit of the Suryavanshi and the Chandravanshi within themselves? Their relative influence within the individual changing, depending upon the situations he faces?
Yes, you're right. But most people have a dominant trait, either the masculine or the feminine.
Shiva nodded.
The reason why you need to know the two ways of life is because once you have discovered evil, you would have to tailor your message depending on which people you speak to. You will have to convince the Suryavanshis in one manner and the Chandravanshis in an altogether different manner in the battle against evil.
Why would I need to convince them? I don't think either the Suryavanshis or the Chandravanshis lack in courage.
It has nothing to do with courage, my friend. Courage is only needed once the war begins. To begin with, you need to persuade the people to embark upon the war against evil. You will need to influence them to give up their attachment to evil.
Attachment to evil? Cried a flabbergasted Shiva. Why in the name of the holy lake would anyone be attached to evil?